sitting here with Ruth, the Executive Director and Curator of The Corner, Whitman-Walker's Cultural Center at Liz. And you announced a couple of weeks ago a project just for our staff called A Shoebox of Life, a message from out here, which is what we're going to briefly talk about today. So in Rooted Together and in other 30-minute circles, we've been talking a lot about the paradox that this current moment gives us, being both constrained or in contraction, as well as creative and expansive as we've learned quickly to adapt. And your project kind of feels like very much that conversation.
Yeah, the idea is that people use boxes like shoeboxes, but they don't have to be boxes, shoeboxes, and kind of create a kind of image, visual landscape of where they are right now, how they're doing, what they feel like, who they feel they are at this particular moment in history, this particular moment in time. And there are several reasons why I wanted to do that. One is deeply personal. I mean, we're somehow all very alone, isolated, and at the same time really desiring to be together, to be connected somehow. And I think we're also thinking much more about what it means to be connected, right? Because what normally seems a given, that we're somehow sharing space, is now not a given anymore. It's in question. And we don't know for how long it's going to be in question and how that is all going to change. And so everyone's kind of seeking ways to kind of redefine themselves, but at the same time also figure out how to be with others. And mostly the solutions that are being found are digital solutions. So we're Zooming like you and I are doing now, or we're trying to connect in other ways digitally. And I think that's great, but I'm a bit worried about the bodies and space, because I don't know what the bodies in space do. I mean, we all know that there's communication between bodies. There's non-verbal communication, and that, you don't have to believe, you don't have to be spiritual, mystical to be, or esoteric to know that when we share a space with someone else, there's some kind of energy in space. And I don't think that this can be so easily translated to the digital. And so the first reason for me to do this whole thing was to think, if we don't have these bodies right now, what can we do that is maybe not digital, because that's other people are inventing in that way. And what can we do? How can we maybe find other ways to connect? So that was the first reason. And then I thought, if we kind of create little environments, because we're all developing these, as you say, becoming creative in some way, cooking and, developing new hobbies and so on.
Shaving our heads, dyeing our hair.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my hair is really long now.
Everybody's is. It's either really short or really long.
Shaving our beards.
Yeah, well, we'll see where that goes. I can't wear a mask on it very easily, so.
So why not put it into some kind of, not oral history, but, nevertheless, a kind of history of this moment.
Right, yep.
And do that in a creative way, because I think it's really important. We know this from the earlier pandemics. We know it's really important that we tell our own stories.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think about all the great artists from the AIDS years, and that's the record in many ways of what those years were, right? And so there's a way in which that art was such a huge flourishing then. I think not least of which because, I don't know, I kind of have this sense, maybe because it's spring, that like there was this flower that was, there's this big flowering, and then suddenly it was gone. It was a very short-lived flower, but we remember that flower. just like I was saying something earlier in one of our 30-minute circles today, we were talking about art. And I said, look, we don't remember the bankers of Rome. We don't remember the accountants of Greece, and not to dog any of those people because, we need them. Absolutely. But what we remember is our art.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we study from that. So I get what you're saying about, how do we create something in physical space?
Yeah.
The thing that I get twitchy about, which I have to say, is when you say, like, what's your life like put it into a box, right? And then I start to get really vulnerable, like, you're seeing me pulled together today, and you're seeing one wall in my, probably pretty disgusting house right now. And do I want to show my coworkers what my life has been? Like, do I want to show that kind of vulnerability? Because we do kind of have this wall, right? Even though that wall's been broken down by being on Zoom and all of our houses. I don't know, that just feels like a very interesting problem.
Yeah, I understand that. It's really, really interesting. Do I even have the means, even if I wanted to show my vulnerabilities, do I even feel like I have the means to express them in this way, right? So another part of the project was really to collect these boxes and have them be in the space. Unfortunately, because of safety reasons, we can't really do that right now. Because I thought, okay, they could be kind of closed and not showing what's inside at this point, and just be placeholders for a time when we can deal with it.
Yeah.
And the idea would be to get together and really have not expose them, to be really careful with how to deal with that. So to get together and really maybe go through a session of opening them up together and talking about what's in there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so that was the idea. And there's a person I'm talking to whom I really fell in love with. He's part of a group called What Would an HIV Doula Do? Theodore Kerr. And he's been posting a lot on COVID and on oral history and how we're writing our histories. He's asking, why did you do what you did? Why are we remembering the AIDS pandemic the way we are remembering it?
Sure.
What can we do to stay really to care for each other, but also stay active? How can we mourn? He's asking really interesting questions, and I could imagine someone like that, if not him, someone like that, to come and then do this with us together, so that there is some
and kind of walk us through it, give it some shape.
Yeah, to have some commemoration and some moment where we can recognize maybe the vulnerability we're in or we were in.
Yeah. So quickly before we wrap up, how do I address the fact that, I may not be crafty, or I may not be artistic, or my perfection might be getting in the way, right? Because when I hear of like creating a piece of art, I go to, well, I feel like I'm artistic, but I can see other people saying that they're not artistic, right?
Yeah, because I guess I never thought of it as creating a piece of art.
So interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So you came up with the artist, and I was thinking about visual aids and all these amazing artists. I was thinking of it more along the line of the quilt, which was actually not done by artists. I mean, sure, some artists were part of it, but there are other people who were just lay people who started to teach themselves how to do this, how to make this quilt, right? And so it's more, and I also was going back to childhood because we used to make these environments as kids.
Like little dioramas,
imagining these things. So I was never thinking of it in this kind of pressure that you have to make something perfect, a perfect and aesthetically pleasing thing. I was more thinking of it like a time capsule.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Memory box.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's the deadline? When do you want them by?
I think we're gonna continue to collect, at the moment each person can do one or even do more because, we are also going up and down. I am talking to people, and one day they're somehow feeling they can cope, and the next they're destroyed.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting more and more nervous and anxious, and so there may be more than one me.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's
Oh, yeah.
no limit to how I don't want this to be something people feel pressured to do, but more like an avenue in which they can kind of creatively explore something that they might not remember afterwards also, because we're history is being rewritten. We know that
Yeah.
again, we know that from AIDS. And so we want Whitman-Walker staff is doing such an incredible, amazing work right now. But where are they at? Do they even have, energy and time to think about how to think back to this time?
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's I thought it as a kind of fun or low level way of commemorating something without judging it at this point, and then keeping it close. And then, so in terms of deadline, we haven't figured yet out how to safely bring them together. So
Okay.
for the moment, I'm just asking people to hold on to their boxes. That also gives them time to to revisit it and think, oh, I don't want to turn in my box after all. But
yeah.
But at some point we will say, okay, this is how, please bring your boxes in, and then we'll all collect them together, and then we can start this process.
Okay, good. I'll look forward to that. Ruth, thank you for taking time today. It's nice to see your face.
Thanks. I love yours.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, my dear. So we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, take care. Bye.